heat treatment from metallurgical perspective. How metallurgy, whenever you do the heat treatment in various type of heat treatment, how metallurgy is going to change and what the changes we are going to see in a component, how it is metallurgically justified or how it is metallurgically looked into, right? All those aspects will be covered. Before I start, there is a disclaimer, right? Various pictures are used here, belongs to the copyright goes to the owners, those who are belongs to them. The focus area for today and tomorrow, why heat treatment, steps involved in heat treatment, metallurgical changes during the heat treatment, importance of cooling media in heat treatment, hardenability and its importance, type of heat treatment. Let us discuss all the heat treatment processes, very popular heat treatment processes, bulk heat treatment process, and see the metallurgical changes and surface heat treatment process as such. What are the basic classifications of the material? One is a pure material, all of us know. Copper wire is one. Only one element is there. Pure copper means 100% it is copper. If it is aluminium, 100% it is aluminium, right? It's an iron, 100% iron. I don't think we use 100% iron material anyway, right? Thus we call it as a pure material. What is then alloy? Alloy is having more than one element, right? Iron, what is called the steel, is an alloy, right? Steel is having iron, carbon, something else along with it. It is more than one element. If it is there, we call it as an alloy, right? We call, if it is an aluminium, ALCA, silicon, aluminium and silicon alloys. Aluminium is there, silicon is there. Brasses, copper and zinc is there. Bronze, copper and tin is there. These are all that we call it as an alloy. It is having more than one element. We call it as alloy. Please remember, pure materials is a very rare in an engineering application today because it don't have any strength, very soft in nature. Copper wire is used not because of the strength today. Copper wire is a good example of the pure material used in an engineering application today because of its conductivity. Because there the electrical to pass the electricity, conductivity matters a lot. Hence copper wire is the most suitable. It has got 100% ISES conductivity. Hence the pure material. Nowhere else we use the pure material because it don't have a strength. To all pure material, including iron, they are very soft in nature. To bring in a strength, we add alloying element to it. We call it as an alloy. That means copper, if you add a zinc, strength will increase. We call it as a brass alloy. If an iron, pure iron, if you add carbon, we call it as a steel or cast iron. Right? The alloys are meant to increase the strength of the particular material. This is called solid solution strengthening. By adding alloying element, we are going to increase the strength of the material. Many examples: steel, cast iron, brass, bronze, many aluminum alloys, many titanium alloys, and all those things. The next category is composite. Again, composite, I don't go into the details of the composite, may not touch upon on a particular heat treatment. Composites also heat treated to some extent. Composites are again having more than two elements, but they don't mix with each other. If an alloy, right, one second element added is soluble in the first element, but in a composite that's not soluble. If you add 10 grams of silicon carbide into an aluminium, silicon carbide will be there in the form of a silicon carbide, right? It will not soluble in the primary elements. That's what we call it as a composites. Many examples, there are natural composites, there are artificial or man-made composite like FRCs, aluminum, silicon carbides, and all those things. Wood bones are the natural composites. Another one is a compound. Again, here are more than two elements are there, but only the difference is, right, the two elements, when they come together, entire different properties has been developed. If you look at an alloy, in an alloy, when an iron, if you add a carbon, some of the carbon properties will come into a iron. If you add a chromium strength, chromium is a high strength, some strength will be added into an iron if you add a chromium. That means the properties of individual elements are not lost. In a compound, those original properties of both the elements are completely lost and the new property will be developed. The good example for a compound is a salt, NaCl, sodium chloride. Right? Sodium is a highly reactive metal kept in the kerosene. in the laboratory. Chlorine is a poisonous gas. When sodium reacts with chlorine, form a compound NaCl that's called salt. We all eat every day. Look at this. Poisonous gas with a highly reactive metal, they come together and form a compound we all eat every day. Original properties is completely lost. New properties developed, that we call it as a compounds. There are many polymers, ceramic. Ceramic is basically a compound, oxide or nitrate or carbides, right? This will be, most of the ceramics are either oxide or nitrates or the carbides. Let us say why heat treatment. I explain in a what is called in the broad way to increase the strength heat treatment is happening. To understand the why heat treatment, we need to understand material science tetrahedron, right? That's very, if you understand that, why we will come to know why the heat treatment is required for any components. Let us say there is a shaft, it has to perform some function, correct? How, if you want to perform, what it should have? It should have its required properties in it, correct? It should have a required properties in it. From where the properties is coming to this particular material? Properties, from where it is coming? Let us say there is a shaft here. From where it is properties, it should have a 600 MPa strength. When I is having 600 MPa strength, from where this property is coming from? Whether steel shaft can have a 600 MPa, copper shaft also can have a 600 MPa? No, we know that. Copper is a soft material, we will not get that amount of strength at all in the copper. But with the steel, possibilities are high because it's not a soft material, it has got its own strength. That means basically properties to the materials are coming from the chemical composition. I hope everybody understands this. Properties to any material coming from the chemical composition what is having. Steel is having chemical composition of an iron, carbon, chromium, or blah blah, so many things. Brass may be having a chemical composition of copper, zinc, so many other things, right? Basically, any performance or the properties to a material coming from basically chemical composition, right? I hope you understand. It depends upon the chemical composition. That's why selection of the material comes into the picture. Then what is heat treatment process basically? Let us understand. Basically, it is a thermal processing, right? It is a thermal processing. That means heating, cooling. Heating, cooling is what we call it as a thermal processing. Thermal process, heating and cooling is basically an alloys, right? Inducing certain property changes in the material, we call it as a heat treatment process. That means bring in a thermal processing, that means heating and cooling do it, thereby altering the microstructure of that to get a required properties in the material. We call it the heat treatment process. I already said to any component to perform better, we should have a size, we should have a shape, you should have a strength. This is called the three output of a design engineer basically. See, this is what is called as a body-centered cubic structure. You can see 4 atoms are arranged at the top, cubic structure. 4 atoms are arranged at the bottom, 1 atom at the center. This structure is called as a body-centered cubic structure. Can you able to see that? This is called body center. If the atoms are arranged like this, it is called as a body-centered cubic structure. Okay, there are 4 atoms at the top, 4 atoms at the bottom, 1 atom at the top, at the center. It is called body-centered cube. That's why it is called body-centered. If the atoms are arranged like this, we call it as a body-centered cubic structure. This is one of the arrangement in a lattice structure. This is what is called as a face-centered cubic structure. There are 4 atoms at the top, 4 atoms at the bottom corner, and every 1 atom in each face, including top and the bottom face. 4 here plus 2 here. There are 6 atoms are there here. This is called face-centered cubic structure. It is. Let us try to understand, before I get into the other aspects of iron-ion carbon diagram, we'll try to understand one by one. I think everybody knows what is atom. Is it coming in the way? This atom, we know there is an electron, proton, what is called as the neutron at the center, and electron, this one. Every metals will be having the atoms in it. When so many atoms arranged in a particular way, we call it the unit cell or the lattice structure. BCC, FCC, all those things are called lattice structure. Then these atoms are arranged in a particular way, right? One is called as, each one is called as an unit cell, one BCC cell or the one FCC cell or something. We call it as a unit cell. So many unit cell will become a crystal. We can see the continuously it has been arranged. Unit cell is attached to unit cell from all the directions. Lakhs of unit cells are coming together. We call it the crystal structure. We call it the crystal structure it is. I hope you understand that. So many unit cells arranged one, from all the direction, right? Lakhs of unit cells are arranged together. We call it what is called the crystal structure. If many crystal in a one, then it will become a grain. That means we can see here. 1 minute. This is a crystal structure, right? So many crystal structure, then it will become a grain. What happens? This crystal will grow bigger and bigger, and the other crystals is also growing. They come and touch each other. Then it creates a grain boundary. Orientations are different. I'll show the video quickly after this, right? Each one is called as a grains. This is called as a grain. Inside what is there? Crystal is there. If you go further, there is a unit cell, then there is an atom, right? With so much of crystal together, we call it as a grain, right? The two grains are separated by what is called as a grain boundary. This is a very, very important. What happens, right? If the one crystal, there is a crystal here, you can see here, what I am showing, it will keep growing, they are touch each other. When touches, the grain boundary will be developed. This may be in a different orientation and this may be in a different orientation. That means this creates a grain boundary, right? The two grains meet at the point, we call it the grain boundaries. Then so many grains creates a metal. This is what is the C, one above all. What we are discussing now is an unit cell. What really happens, what austenite, what type of unit cell or the lattice structure is having is an FCC structure. What the ferrite is having, right? Alpha ferrite is having BCC or the gamma ferrite is having BCC. So many unit cell come together, we call it the crystal structure. Crystal, right? Many crystals will become a grain, and each grains are separated by a grain boundaries, and many grains will become a metal. This is the series, how it works. What is actually the carburizing? I said very clearly, this is one of the important surface, what is called diffusion hardening technique. Carburizing is very popular, but only thing is, it is not like induction hardening, it will take a longer time. Maybe 4 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, depending upon the depth you want. That's the only disadvantages of carburizing, but it is cheaper. Any complicated shape can be done. What exactly carburizing is done? You know that, see, I said very clearly, carburizing is suitable for only a low carbon steel. It is not suitable for high carbon or high alloyed steels. One of the requirement for carburizing, it should be low carbon steel, less than 0.3% carbon. Such alloys only can be carburized. Very clear. Induction hardening is not suitable for low carbon steel, but carburizing is suitable only for a low carbon steel. What we'll do in a carburizing, I'll explain. Let us say this component to be carburized. What I will do, I'll keep this component in a furnace, or I'll say, but there are 2-3 types of carburizing. It is called pack carburizing, gas carburizing, and liquid carburizing. I'll explain the pack carburizing, solid carburizing first, then we'll go to the gas carburizing. Let us say this is a component to be carburized. Keep it in a box covered with a charcoal everywhere. Keep it in a box covered with a charcoal. I hope all of us know charcoal is a carbonaceous material. When it is heated, it produces a carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide gas. All of us know. Cover the entire things, the component with a charcoal. Put it into a furnace, maintain that austenitic temperature. What is austenitic temperature? Depending upon the alloy, 50 degree above the upper critical temperature, the furnace is maintained. Keep this box inside that particular furnace. When you keep this furnace, when this charcoal reaches to that particular temperature, produce enormous carbon dioxide, and that later converted into carbon monoxide gas. When that carbon monoxide gas comes in contact with the surface, iron surface, it converts into a nascent carbon, only C. And C start at that particular high temperature. Look at this. This component is the temperature of this component close to 900 degree, surrounded by a carbon, nascent carbon around this, and the carbon percentage of the shaft is only 0.1 percentage. Outside, very rich carbon is there. We know the gradient. That at that high temperature, always carbon moves from a high density to a lower density carbon. Here it is only 0.1. Here it is close to about very high percentage of carbon is there. Very rich carbon is there. Always at that temperature, carbon easily start moving into that. It enters into the component, carbon. Let us say I keep in these conditions so that carbon start diffusing into the component. I keep it for 5 hours. For a depth of 0.5, mostly the carbon is increased. If I keep a 10 hour, mostly 1 mm depth, the carbon is diffused. If I take 20 hours, 2 mm mostly diffused, carbon diffused. What that happening? The surface is getting converted into a high carbon, but the core is still, for a depth of 1 or 2 mm, it has become a high carbon steel because the carbon percentage is increased because of the diffusion of the carbon. Because of this diffusion, the surface will convert into a high carbon steel and core is still a low carbon steel because only 0.2% carbon is there. Here it is increased to about 0.7 or 0.8% carbon because of the diffusion for a depth of 1 mm, depending upon how much time you keep. At this stage, take it out from the furnace and quench it into water. When you quench it into water, the surface will get converted into martensite because the cooling rate is sufficient for that surface to achieve the martensite. Because high carbon steel, we know that TTT diagram is away from the vertical axis even if you quench it into water. Low carbon steel cannot be hardened. We know that the core is still a low carbon steel. When you quench it into water, it gets converted into ferrite and perlite back. Because it's a low carbon steel, cooling rate is not sufficient to achieve the martensite. It's still passing through the ferrite and perlite band only. Because it's your TTT diagram is very close to the vertical axis. Then core will get converted back to ferrite and perlite, but the surface will get converted into martensite for a depth of 1 or 2 mm. That's why they then temper it. When you temper it, 65 RC will become a 60 RC, so that surface is converted into a very high wear resistance, but the core is still a soft, not ductile, tough one, because it is having the original, go back to the original hardness process. This process is carburizing. Since the carbon is diffusing, we call it as a carburizing process. Okay? Yeah, you can see that for a depth, case depth. Yeah, this is called effective case depth. Till that one, we have a exact, for a depth of 1 mm, the what is called the hardness is constant. Then the hardness will be reduced. But this is the hardness of the core material. In between is called as a, this is the total case depth and this is the effective case depth. Okay, heat treatment process alters the microstructure and modify the property. Understanding of various phases and basic structure is important to understand the heat treatment process. Steel is very friendly to heat treatment and many of all heat treatment process can be applied to steel. That's why steel is called heat treatment friend. Precipitation hardening is the very common type of heat treatment process applied to non-ferrous alloys. Even ferrous steels also can be few alloys of the ferrous also can be done precipitation hardening. Surface hardening is done to improve the wear resistance. Through hardening is done to improve the strength of the entire component, but the surface hardening is done only to improve the wear resistance of the surface. Surface hardening is also improves the fatigue life of the component.